I'm going to, before I get John Morgan on, let me tell you what makes Morgan & Morgan so good. You know what John does? He hires people. JFK Jr. worked at one time at Morgan & Morgan. I happen to know a guy who trained him, Pete Koch, and he's a friend of mine. And you know what John does? John gets people, puts them in positions to succeed and lets them do their jobs. The difference between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles is simple. It's called delegating. 2 days ago, we had Jimmy on. You know what Jimmy did? Jimmy hired the greatest assistant coaches he could possibly have. He wanted to hire guys who could take his job. He wanted talent around him. The more talent you have around you, the better chances of success. Thinking you can do it all by yourself, that's not how you build a winning organization. With that said, if you go on his Twitter, there's some of the best takes. Some of you guys, last time that we're on, across all of our platforms, by the way, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, all of it, huge response when John was on. You guys loved what he said about the dual threat quarterback and why it's so instrumental today. All that being said, let's bring on our friend John Morgan now. From Morgan & Morgan, by the way, him and Ultima have built the most powerful injury law firm in the country. We're proud to have him here, part of the program, and part of my life is our friend John Morgan. How you doing, John?
I'm good. I'm calling you from Maui, Hawaii.
John, what made you say that? Because it resonated so much. I had even Jimmy make a comment on your take about the dual threat quarterback. Why do you think that again, too, on February 9th, we saw it play out with Jalen Hurts. You said that you're going to see more of that in the NFL instead of the old school drop back. Why do you think that's going to be the new wave quarterback in today's NFL compared to what it was, say, 20 years ago?
It's a whole new dimension. It's like an offense that they'd never thought of. It's like, in the old days, all you had basketball players doing a set shot. Well, now you got players who can dunk. And when you get players who can dunk, that's a whole new offense. And these guys, look at the contract that the guy at Buffalo just got. He's that guy. He is that guy. And when you got a quarterback who can be a halfback and a quarterback, you just got two for the price of one. What do we like the best? BOGO. Buy one, get one free. It's called QB BOGO. Halfback, quarterback. All for one.
John, do you think that mentality has changed with the younger style coaches where back in the day, John, not to go race or anything or political and politics and all, but do you think that there was a stereotype on that type of player back in the day that player wasn't able to translate his game from the college game to the pro game for whatever reason it was, and that more today, they're more receptive? Because if you look at the highest paid quarterbacks in the game today, majority of them are all the black quarterbacks. Do you think that stereotype has also changed the position?
Well, look, of course it is. Remember when Doug Williams was coming into the league? Everybody's like, holy cow, a black quarterback. Is he going to be smart enough to do it? Yeah, he was. And yeah, they are. And look, this problem is still the same with coaching. If I could have one coach be my coach, it's Mike Tomlin. If I could just have one coach, and if it wasn't him, it might be Tony Dungy. There's still an old boy network owning the NFL. That's still in there. And that's why you don't have many Mike Tomlins. But look what happens when, Dion becomes a coach. All of a sudden, there you have it. And I predict that your friend Michael Vick will be at D1 before it's all over.
I'm going to make another comment to you here. Tony Dungy said this the other day.
I saw him on your show.
John Gruden, I asked him, do you think John Gruden should get an opportunity to coach again? And he said, look, People all make mistakes in life. I know, John, a lot of people are going to hold what he said. I love what the Buccaneers are doing. They're putting him back in the Ring of Honor. John, do you think a guy like John Gruden, who has been endorsed by Eric Allen, Warren Sapp, all players that played for him, do you think he deserves another opportunity to coach again in the NFL?
Yes, and John Gruden was set up. He was set up. That was all done to handle John Gruden. It was confidential. Yeah, look, people say things they shouldn't say. It's wrong. If all of us are going to be held to that standard, none of us can have a job. None of us can have a job. Let he who is perfect throw the first stone. Remember that one? Look, John Gruden is a good guy. The players love him. He's a great coach. He got screwed by Daniel Snyder.
Absolutely, he did. John, I'm noticing some things going on now. I read your Twitter page a lot, and I go over there and I saw Kyle Busch. You get so deep into all sports now. I saw that looks so awesome. You're in NASCAR, you're in UFC, you're here, you're all over the landscape. Why is sports so important to how you brand your company, and why have you run your company kind of like a sports team, and how you see Morgan and Morgan? I mean, you're everywhere, John. Like the rumor you used to tell me, or the saying you used to tell me, I don't need you because I'm everywhere. And I mean, that's one of the most famous Morgan and Morgan lines of all time. But how come sports is so important to you?
You'll understand this. We live in a day where there is cord cutting. TV is dying. Cord cutting, DVR, social media, streaming. It's getting harder and harder, but guess where the audience still is? Live sports, talk radio. You see my name at the bottom of this?
Yes, sir.
Live. People, they're not taping this. This is live, by and large. I'm sure people tape it and come back. But live sports is where it's at. And so I'm the sponsor for the Yankees, the Red Sox. I mean, you go through America, the Heat, and then I get to take that logo and put that button on my billboards. People, oh, he's with the Yankees? Okay. You kind of get that going. And you get to use, like with Kyle Busch, I'm building buses now with Kyle's race car on the side. And yesterday, Kyle was doing commercials that we're getting ready to roll with Kyle Busch, driving a Morgan and Morgan bus. And Rowdy Busch is one of the most beloved figures in the history of NASCAR. And if Rowdy Busch is with you, guess what? I'm with you. If the New York Yankees are, if you're good enough for the New York Yankees, you're good enough for me. And for God's sake, if Dan Sileo endorses you, it can't be wrong.
That's my friend so much. John, you spent $250 million a year in advertising, and north of that, hey, I got to tell you, I'm going to tell you guys a story behind the scene here. This is back when John was poor and he was only making what Shaq made. Okay. he told Shaq, I think, was making $28 million at the time. So it's now north of that number of $250,000 you spend in advertising a year.
We spent $350 in 2024. But remember, we're in California, we're in Philly, Boston, New York, Florida, all the South. St. Louis, Detroit. We just opened in Detroit. So it's a big number, but it's a lot. It's a big country.
Absolutely, John. I mean, again, too, the NIL. I want to ask you about NIL. I saw you post something on NIL, and you said that this is going to be the undoing of college sports. Why?
Okay, it already is, because it's hard to feel loyalty to people who are not loyal to you. And by the way, I don't blame them. These are poor kids from poor families, and the NCAA screwed them for so many years, so hard, so long, that the NCAA did this to themselves. But what it's done for guys like me, I'm watching a game. I used to know what the players look like underneath the helmets. I couldn't identify them in a lineup. Now it's like watching Nintendo, and it's like D D D D D D D. And then yesterday you see the portal. People are already in the portal, and the tournament's not over. And so that loyalty factor. But what I said is this: you cannot out-coach recruiting. That's why Saban's out. In the old days, Saban would walk into a kid's living room, and it'd be like, Jesus Christ walking in.
That's right.
I mean, if Nick Saban or Bear Bryant walked into your house in Alabama, the Pope can come later. Okay, let's have these guys. But now in Alabama, it's $50 million to stay competitive. It's all about checks now. That's why I said in my tweet, what I would do, Dan, if I was an athletic director at Morgan & Morgan, I get no money unless I win. I'd go get me a young, hungry coach that's going to work 24 hours a day and say, listen, I'm going to make you the head coach of Cincinnati. Not a great program, not a bad program. And what I'm going to do is every win you get, I'm going to give you X amount. And you're going to get more every time you win. You're going to get a bigger. If you win the tournament, if you win the conference, you're going to get a bonus. If you win the whole thing, and if you win the whole thing, I'm going to give you $25 million. And guess what, Dan? They would be lined up. You're going, well, who would take that day? Now, I'm going to give you a bad example. I'm old enough to know this. Remember back in the day where Notre Dame hired Gary Moeller, the high school coach? Yeah. That didn't work out. But there are some high school coaches out there right now that I guarantee you they're
especially in Florida.
Hey, my boy John Brantley.
Yep.
My guy John Brantley. I guarantee you give John Brantley the Gators and $50 million in NIL and pay him by the win, you'll save money. And don't give him a long-term contract. All this buying, Billy Napier, look, he saved his, but he come from wherever, Louisiana Lafayette. It's like a Canadian football team. I don't even know. It's like, is it 11 man or 8 man? Lafayette. I don't know what I thought the fishermen down there, but he comes in, he gets this huge contract that they almost had to buy out. He saved himself. Thank God for him. But there are so many people that would work for peanuts and really work hard for a lot of peanuts. And the athletic director who takes that bold move, listen, you know how many people are coaching Pop Warner for free?
Yeah.
I mean, and they're spending 40, 50 hours. My brother-in-law, one of them.
Yeah.
There are people who would do this job and do it better. So I'm saying, look, let's have a new paradigm. Let's have the money for the NIL. Let's save the money on the coach. And if the coach comes in and wins, every time they win, they get more and more and more and more. You win the national championship, you get a $25 million bonus. How many people are lined up for that?
Oh, absolutely. You'd have all the big name coaches lined up for that.
Yes. Now, they're not now because the agents, they get their 4%, their 5%. They get along. Look, Jimbo Fisher, what a disaster.
Oh.
They give him once you give a guy a 10-year contract, it's over.
That's right.
It's over. Look, I love Calipari. He's my guy. John Calipari is my guy. We communicate all the time. Kentucky, they did what they did. When Cal won the other night against Pitino, I wrote him. I said, Cal, this was the makeup for the Wisconsin loss. I was there when they got beat by Wisconsin. This win for Calipari, and you know how big it was? Look at his wife and daughter in the stands. They were crying like it was a national championship. Cal is the best, but Cal is a recruiter. When Calipari walked in a kid's living room, the Pope was there. So the NIL has changed it all, but I think with NIL changing, we should change. I also said another thing, Dan. I'm sick of all these boosters. Almost every booster I've ever met is the most unathletic person that I've ever met in my life. There's a booster in Florida that I know that he went to elementary school. Somebody told me this guy struck out in kickball. And he's sitting up in the stands going, fire Billy Napier. You struck out in kickball, dude. Who gives you? I never criticize anybody. You know why? Because I couldn't do it.
Yeah, right.
And I didn't do it. When I look at you, the what you all did, holy cow. You think I'm ever going to criticize you all and Jimmy Johnson? And these boosters are up, these guys who struck out in kickball are up there critiquing.
Kickball.
Kickball. Just envision the 3 rolls and maybe a foul or two, and then you finally just whiff. And those are the people. Look at boosters. Look at who they are. They're rich oil men who are nothing but jock sniffers, who all of a sudden get to walk around and be on the sidelines with the great athletes. And the athletes are laughing at them. They're laughing at them. I'm sorry to boosters.
Hey, kickball. I love it.
Yeah.
John, do me a favor. Tell me, I said this, folks. I want everyone to know. You know what guys like John Morgan are? You don't want the money. You want the blueprint of how we got there. And you got a book now, John. You can't teach vision. Tell me what this means, because you and I had a conversation before, and we sat back on your porch there, and you told me, this is how I saw this. This is how I see things. I mean, you're looking down the line. Are some of the things, the stories is this going to reflect on how you got from point A to point Z and what this is about?
I've got 2 books. One I wrote called You Can't Teach Hungry. It's on Amazon. The second one I wrote was called You Can't Teach Vision. And I'll tell you the short story. You hear people say, Steve Jobs is a visionary. Bill Gates is a visionary. Mark Cuban is a visionary. And I love Cuban, as do you. They are visionaries. But there are a lot of visionaries that don't ever see the vision through. Once upon a time, Dan, I used to go to church. After church, I'd go to the Denny's, the crayons. My kids would color with crayons. The crayons would roll on the floor. I'd get on the floor. I'd try to pick them up. I said to my wife, why can't they invent crayons that don't roll? One day I go into the Denny's and they got crayons that were triangles.
Right.
And I go, that's my idea. they stole my idea. You remember? No, I was a visionary, but I wasn't a vision maker. We all got great ideas. We've all got, the Peel Pocket Fisherman. That was my idea. The Vegemite, George Foreman Grill. No, there are visionaries and there's millions of them, but there's a very few vision makers. And along the way, these vision makers got to fight off vision blockers. Don't do it. You're not going to make it. It's too risky. And you know who the number 1 vision blocker is? You. Why was Jerry Rice so great? Because he had a vision that he made come true. In the summertime, Jerry Rice ran up hills of sand, just walking in hills of sand. Jerry Rice ran up hills of sand. When you see Jerry Rice's films, the 49ers, that didn't just happen. He made it happen because he had a vision to be the greatest wide receiver ever. But it didn't just happen. He had to make it happen. And
John,
when people tell him, let's go drink a beer, he said, no, I got to go run the hill.
John, is that about just being persistent on things? And if you have conviction on things, sticking to that conviction.
Believing in yourself, believing in your vision, putting the team together to execute your vision, to have the guts to do it. And look, there's a lot of pitfalls along the way. There's a lot of vision blockers along the way. And sometimes, Dan, we fail. And when we fail, we don't realize that's the greatest lesson we ever get, because now we've got all these mistakes, but we don't ever go out and try again a lot of times because we're so scarred by the failure. But failure is, I also write about, failure can be your greatest friend. Think of the advantages of doing something again after you've already learned what you did wrong. So that's what You Can't Teach Vision's all about.
John, what do you think your greatest asset is when you're talking this way and you're talking and writing in a book like this, and you probably self-reflect for you? And again, I want to tell people this man was poor. This man wasn't handed anything. I've seen the pictures from Kentucky. I know your story, and nobody handed this man anything. Okay, there had to have been something inside, John, that you thought was your greatest asset to put you in the position you are now. Can you share that? What you think?
What I think it was, I believe, Dan, I've got a final book I've written out here in Hawaii. It's going to be published this summer called Life is Luck, The Paper Boy. It goes like this. I was a paper boy. I had that genetic seed inside of me to be a paper boy. Being a paper boy, for all you people listening, that's a hard job. That's every day. That's rain, sleet, snow, 24/7. You don't go on vacation. I was a paper boy. I was born with that genetic seed to be an entrepreneur. Warren Buffett was a paper boy. Oprah Winfrey was a paper girl. You start asking people that you meet are successful, say, hey, can I ask you a question? Were you a paper boy? You're going to be surprised how many were. I think my greatest asset was luck. I think I've had 1,000 left turns, right turns, backups, U-turns, and somehow I ended up here. But I also believe that my greatest asset of all that I had was I was born with that genetic seed to be an entrepreneur. But my greatest asset is this. I'm not really smart. I'm definitely not book smart, but I'm smart. And I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. And I'm smart enough to go get people who are smarter than me, who can do what I do. Do what I need to do. I read a book by Rockefeller one time, big book called Titan. I only underlined one thing. They said, Mr. Rockefeller, how'd you build this oil company? You're not a scientist. You're not a geologist. You're a bookkeeper. How did you build Standard Oil? You're not a scientist. You know what he said? This is all I underlined. I hire scientists. He knew what he didn't know. The most dangerous person, and you know this from sports, Dan, the most dangerous person is the person who thinks they know and don't. The most dangerous person we can ever meet in our life is that person who thinks they're smart and they're dumber than you know what.
John, speaking of that, John, I saw a tweet where you went, the Luka deal will go down as one of the worst deals in the history of sports. Why?
Ever. Well, first of all, Anthony Davis has got the same legs that Sam Bowie had.
Oh, Jesus.
Listen, when you look at Sam, I'm a Kentucky guy, so I know Kentucky centers and big guys. They got those giraffe legs. They got those Embiid legs. Since we're in Philly, he ain't going to make it next year. He's done. I got bad news for Philly. Those legs, those giraffe legs, ain't going to happen. Ain't gonna happen. You need thick donkey legs.
Oh,
you see those donkey legs? All right. Hitting 3-pointers. Listen, here's what I want to do. If I was Adam Silver, I'd make a new rule. 4-pointers from beyond half. They can make it at half court now. You see this? Tell your wrestlers, go to this thing with Steph Curry. He threw a ball from the other
I saw that. He threw it from the hallway.
The hallway.
He threw it in. I couldn't believe that.
And he threw it in. Another thing for everybody to watch. Watch Bill Burr go off on Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith does this thing where he's boxing.
Yeah.
And Bill Burr goes, what does he think he's doing? How does this guy? And the guy goes, what is Stephen A. Smith? He goes, Bill Burr goes, he thinks it looks good. Tell your people, Google Bill Burr, Stephen A. Smith is boxing. What you should not, like, I should never shoot a basket and criticize anybody. You cannot be out there, John Morgan, boxing and criticizing boxers or LeBron James or Bronny James. You don't box. But I think that Dante could be the greatest player, one of the top 5 of all time. This guy shoots threes from the half court line. This guy's big and strong and sturdy. You know, when I see Anthony Davis come in, I just keep thinking of Sam Bowie, who Portland picked over Michael Jordan. Right. Those legs. It's those legs. Even the guy, I hate to say it, but even the guy down in San Antonio.
Yeah.
He's got those giraffe legs. Those giraffe legs are not sturdy. I mean, when Juju loses her ACL, you know the big giraffes are going to have trouble. So I it's so bad. And I'll tell you, the night it happened, I wrote Cuban. I said, "What do you think?" He wrote back, "I'm not part of this anymore. I'm not part of that anymore."
He would never have done that.
I knew what it meant. I knew what he meant, which was WTF. And later he's come up. I guarantee you, if we put truth serum into cubes and said, "Hey, what do you think?" It'd be like, it's worse than the Babe Ruth trade. Look, we don't even know who Babe Ruth was traded for. I don't know. And by the way, and you're supposed to know. And by the way, you got a PhD in this. You got a PhD in sport. But by the way, Babe Ruth wasn't. I mean, that wasn't. I mean, it turned out to be.
Yeah, he was a pitcher. He was
a pitcher.
He wasn't a hitter.
He wasn't a hitter. This one guy's 28, went to the finals. One guy's 33 with giraffe legs and barely can walk. When you watch him walk, they threw their future away. I guarantee you this, that GM, that's his last job in the NBA, unless the Lakers GM hires him to be his assistant because he screwed him.
Hey, John, just to tell you, so to get people up to date here, Babe Ruth was traded because the owner of the Red Sox lost $120,000 because he was a guy in the off-Broadway and he got bankrupt, and he traded him on my birthday, January 3rd, to the New York Yankees for $120,000 back in the day. That's why he was traded to the New York Yankees.
And he was a pitcher.
Hey, look,
think about this. Bill Russell got to the Celtics because the Rochester Royals needed money for the ice capades or something.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, Bill Russell gets to go to the Celtics so that the Rochester Royals, or whatever their name was, could get money for the ice capades. That's how Bill Russell built Boston.
That's right. John, you're going to have to help me with this last thing here. So did I see Dan at Michigan? Is Dan doing like public speaking up at Michigan or something? Did I see Dan Morgan up there?
Well, Dan Morgan we just opened up in Detroit, and part of our strategy is live sports, NIL. And so Dan was up there doing some pictures for billboards and stuff like that. As I'm getting older, and I know I still look like $1 million, but I'm kind of transitioning my kids to me, and Dan loves it. You know, you've had Thanksgiving with Dan.
Love him.
And he's getting married here in Maui in November.
Wow.
November. He's coming out with his girl this week to lock down all the sites. But so Dan was in Michigan doing film with the Michigan Wolverines. We just opened up in Detroit. We're kicking ass. And so Dan was up there doing that. He's coming out to Hawaii, but I hear he's going to stop in. Is there a game in San Francisco this week?
Yes.
He's going to stop in San Francisco on the way out.
Yeah, Sweet 16. Absolutely. Hey, before you get you out of here, John, who do you like in the finals of the NCAA tournament? Who do you like to win it now that St. John's been bounced? Who do you like?
Well, look, I'm torn. I can't lose. Calipari is one of my best buddies in the world. I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky. I cried myself to sleep the night Kentucky lost to Texas Western in 1966. And I went to the University of Florida. I can't lose.
By the way, I thought SEC, John, meant football. I didn't know 14 teams were going to qualify. And there's your nil. 14 teams qualified. They're running the ACC out of business.
ACC is gone. I mean, all ACC is one thing, DUKE. That's it.
That is right. John, thank you for all of your support.
Thank
you for being my friend. Thank you again. Tell Ultima hi. Tell the kids hi. Thank you so much, my friend.
And congratulations on all your success in your program. The reason Jimmy Johnson comes on, the reason George Foreman comes on, the reason Mark Cuban comes on, the reason Tony Dungy comes on is because Dan Sileo has been a great friend to all of us, and we'll never let you down.
God forbid, man. Thank you so much, John. Thank you, my friend. Have a good one, brother. We'll talk to you real soon.
Go Phillies.
You got it, man. That is my friend, John Morgan, man. I love that man. His family, if you ever met him, you would really know what kind of guy that guy is. Seriously, he came from dirt poor nothing. And now he's worth $2 billion. And he's giving you guys free advice on how to build your business and how to build your life. I don't think you can get that. So wait, you get Jimmy Johnson, you get Tony Dungy, you got John Morgan giving you a symposium here and how that goes. So we really appreciate John very much. And as you can tell, we're very tight, and we are. And we're tight with you. Thank you so much. John now comes on here because of you guys. Hit the like button on the way out the door. Thank you again. Big Z, Joe, thank you. 2 to 6 tomorrow, and we'll see you on the flip side.